Hey everybody, it's Coach Najee, and I'm back again, and I'm doing part 3 for rituals. Now, what you really want you to think about this, when it comes to rituals, we already discussed that these things are patterns, but why does it matter? Well, let's look at an athlete. Let's look at a basketball player, soccer player. We look at any athlete and we start to recognize all athletes have rituals. Rituals are simply practicing patterns. You're practicing something repetitively. When you practice it repetitively with intention, you're actually building a habit. And that's what rituals do. Ritual builds habits. And when you build habits, guess what? You start to create the synaptic inventory within the brain. You start to create those neuronal connections. So when we're talking about rituals, we're not talking about anything that's spooky dooky. Remember, we want to keep everything simple, practical, and applicable. When we're referring to rituals, rituals are simply talking about you applying a certain action with a certain intent so you can get a certain result. That's it. So when you go into the kitchen and you take out the seasons that you need before you start making the food, you have a ritual, you have a pattern. This pattern becomes effective and efficient. Well, guess what? When you start practicing a certain way, guess what? You start to live a certain way, you start to play a certain way. So when we're talking about rituals, we're talking about using the tarot ritualistically. When you go into your practice mode, so you're practicing patterns repetitively with intention. When you do that, you go into this ritualistic mode and you go into a certain state. So, as human beings, you can put yourself into a prime state. Well, what the heck does this have to do with tarot? It has everything to do with the tarot. It has everything to do with your life as well. You see, a lot of times we get stuck in victim mode. Victim mode is a low state. That low state is a state of low energy, and your vibration is moving very slowly. In that victim mode, you don't trust yourself. You're using black and white thinking. It's right, it's wrong. You're being judgmental. It's easy to be narrow-minded, and it's easier to condemn yourself. There's very little answers in the victim state. Worse yet, there's very little answers in the victimizer state as well. When you're beating yourself up, you're telling yourself what you need to do and what you haven't done or did, and what you should be doing. These things don't work for power. So what we're talking about when you're practicing actually going through the process of being ritualistic, you're practicing being intentful. So what are you doing? Once again, you're allowing yourself to trust yourself. You're allowing things to flow. On top of that, with the trust and allow, you're giving yourself permission to shine. On top of that, you're allowing things to just be. They can be here and there, and it doesn't have to be right or wrong. You're giving yourself permission to play with reality. You're also giving yourself permission to choose. You're giving yourself permission to choose to see things this way and choose to see things that way, and it doesn't have to be right or wrong. You don't have to pick a side. So you're practicing allowing yourself to be in a state of self-awareness. Now, I know most of you guys are thinking, oh man, look, just get to the cards. It's not about the cards. If you approach the cards with a victim mindset like you do your life, you're going to get the same answers and the same results. And guess what? You're going to have high expectations, but that's insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. Well, guess what? If you approach the tarot with the same attitude that you end up approaching yourself and your life, it becomes a big problem. So what we're talking about is creating a space where it's full of trust, and you're creating this, you're giving yourself an opportunity to trust yourself. You're giving yourself the opportunity to practice going back and forth, saying, whoa, this is real and it's not real. Well, this is right and this is wrong, but it doesn't matter. Well, it could be this and it could be that. You're practicing choice. A lot of times we don't even know we can choose. You can choose what you want. A lot of times when we look at the tarot or anything in life, we're looking for a set direction and a set protocol. We're looking for somebody to give us something that's already fully formed. And the tarot does have a system, don't get me wrong. It's a system and a blueprint to gain self-knowledge through self-discovery. But there's the foundations that needs to be laid, the proper foundation that's going to be conducive to your nature. And your nature is a divine creator. So I would be doing you, it would be an injustice for me to just jump straight into cards and you approach it with the same mindset, the same belief system, and the same rituals. And then you start telling yourself the same stories and you get trapped in one mode of being. That's not the way to go. Okay? So when we're talking about this, the rituals are extremely important here because we're getting ourselves into a certain state. And this is why certain tarot readers will go, they'll snap, they'll do other things, they'll light a candle. They're getting themselves in that peak and prime state to where they're in flow. They're allowing themselves to use their imagination. The ego, the part of them that wants to judge and be right and not be wrong, the part that doesn't want to feel pain, all these things are taking a back seat. And they're putting themselves in a prime state. So part of the ritual is putting yourself in this prime state. Why? Your nature is a divine creator. Because that is your nature, you get to use invisible energy to create physical things. I want you to think about this. All the buildings that you've ever walked into, this was a dream inside somebody's imagination. But guess what? They kept focusing on it. They kept putting intention. They were ritualistic with their thinking and their behavior. And guess what? It went from invisible realm to physical realm. Everything we've ever seen has started in someone's imagination. And when you keep going with that ritual and you allow yourself to tap into your own imagination, you tap into your own divinity, your own creative power, your own infinity engine, to create something or to allow information to come to you, then you step into this mode of power. And this is what I'm really talking about. I'm overemphasizing the point because I know what you're thinking already. Just get to the point. No, it's not instant coffee. It's not instant coffee. It doesn't work that way. I know that's the way we've been taught in the West. It doesn't work that way. So when you're going to go into the reading with your instant coffee mindset, and you're going to start rapid fire questions, and it's not working. Well, this doesn't make any sense because you're approaching it from an illogical standpoint. This is similar to looking at a plant. A plant has a ritual. It has a certain pattern that it practices intentfully, and it keeps that practice going day and night. And guess what? It grows, it grows, it grows, it grows, it grows. It grows in a balanced form to where it's just not pulling all the nutrients from the soil and killing everything else around it. That ritual becomes the plant's lifestyle. The thing it does is connect it to everything that it is. So we're going back to the ritual and everything about the tarot. Remember, it's about self-awareness. So you can gain the self-knowledge. So if you go into a reading judging yourself, you go into a reading doubtful, you go into the reading with this old mindset, it becomes a problem. So what we're doing is the physical actions or invisible actions of actually tapping into your invisible power to shift energy, because energy is not created or destroyed, it only transfers states and forms. You get to tap into that natural ability and you get to create a state of acceptance, of trust and allowance. And when you step into that state and you continuously practice it intentfully and repetitively, because repetition for effect, I'm going to say that a lot. Repetition for effect. Once you keep repeating this prime state, you build the synaptic inventory within the brain. You build the neuronal connections, and guess what? You have a habit. you have a habit. So your ritual is going to create a habit to where you start trusting yourself. And that trust that you develop while you practice the tarot can be transferred and utilized in other aspects of your life. So it's extremely important, and I'm belaboring the point because our Western mind wants to go and snap and boom, boom, boom. Repetition for effect. The ritual is repetition. Repetition. We've practiced negativity for so long. We've practiced frowning and being mad, and it's become ritualistic. Destroying ourselves has become ritualistic. And we don't complain about that. Well, we do, but guess what? We go back to doing it anyways. So the whole point is the rituals is intentful practice and repetition that leads to a certain outcome. So right now what we're talking about is building trust within yourself so you can find yourself and see yourself from a different angle. All right? So this is the end for part 3 of rituals, and we're about to go into the science. And that is a big aspect. There's going to be many videos on this. Why? The science is going to give you the infrastructure and the framework of how to approach the tarot. It's not going to tell you the what, it's going to tell you the how. And it's going to tell you the who. But you already know the who, because you are the who. You are the divine creator that is receiving information and interpreting information. But like we just spoke about, that framework, old framework of judgment and compare and contrast doesn't work. So in the next videos, next couple of videos, we're going to be laying down the framework of how we want to mentally approach the science. Because when we have the science, we have the rituals, and we have the story, guess what? We are taking a 1, 2, 3 combination punch at our old way of thinking, and we're literally anchoring a new way of perceiving. When we do that, it's a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing ourselves in the world, then we can start to see our minds, and as a divine creator, what we've already co-created in our life. So remember, the tarot is a system of self-awareness, gaining self-knowledge through self-awareness. And the first person you're going to practice on is going to be you. So since that is the case, what we want to do is step out of our old ways. We're creating, as a divine creator, we're creating a new mindset. I'm going to give you the secret right now. We're not going to completely define it. Do, both eyes. No. We're going to left, right, bottom, and keep the top open. Because we are a divine creator and a divine co-creator. This is not an Illuminati sign or nothing like that. It is nothing like that at all. We're just talking about not having a boxed-in framework. See both eyes so I don't get accused of anything. Both eyes. Leave the top open. We're creating a new space for your consciousness to flow in and out of, because what you're going to start to do is examine your old way of thinking. What this new ritual that you're building, this new way of practice, this new way of being, this new way of perceiving, you're going to start to examine your old mindset from a different paradigm, from a different angle. And when you do that, something special is going to happen. And the foundation, the framework is extremely powerful right now. So it's going to be repetition for effect, and sorry, not sorry. If you want to know, you want to know. So if you're tired of being in pain, you're tired of suffering, you're tired of being cut by the same sword and the same blade and going through the same problems, guess what? Some framework, some foundation, some infrastructure needs to be laid. So I'm belaboring the point on purpose. What I'm doing is practicing ritual, and I'm drilling it in your head. Repetition for effect. You got it. So this is the end of the video. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, you can email me at coachnajee@positivepatterns.org. You can follow me on Instagram at Positive Patterns. And remember, we're going to heal trauma, stop drama, and end karma so you can be unconditional. unconditionally. You. Later.